Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. It's time for this month's Q&A. Let's take a quick look at the questions for today. The first question is from Joezane about Ting Jin. Second question from Antonious Sameh about Tai Chi Mythology, crane versus snake. The third question is from anonymous member about fast movement in martial art practice. The next question is from brother Redmond about hip movement in internal styles. Then the fifth question is from Cris Coleman about Tai Chi Stepping, powerful versus light. So without any further ado, let's get started. Joezane asked, "Thank you for another great lecture. When you mentioned two-person practice, it made me wonder if you have some thought about Ting Jin. Perhaps that would be a good topic to discuss in upcoming lecture or monthly Q&A. Thank you again." Thank you, Joezane. This is a great question. I'd like to give a brief answer to this question. Ting Jin is a very popular term in the internal styles, even more so in Tai Chi. Ting means listening or hearing, while Jin means force or power. Together, this term is used to describe the practice that practitioners sense the changing of energy. For example, one of the objectives of Tai Chi push hands is to practice Ting Jin. Of course, this term can be used in xingyi and bagua as well, but I have to say that this term is used mostly in Tai Chi. Therefore, I will explain this term based on Tai Chi push hand practice. We all know that martial art practice involves physical movements, which involve sensory stimulation. There are different types of human senses, including seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. In Tai Chi push hand practice, there are two types of sensation. The first type is the inner sensation, which is the result of body movements, including muscle strength, tension, angle change of your arms and legs, balance, and so on. The second type, which is, in my opinion, is more important, is the external sensation, which is a result of the impact added or triggered by your opponent. Of course, we can receive information through all of our common senses in push hand practice, such as seeing, hearing, touching, hopefully no smelling and tasting. But a Tai Chi practitioner usually depends on the sense of touch in practice, even though we use the term listening to describe this activity. If I'm not mistaken, the figure of speech in this case would be a hypallage. Anyway, so in Tai Chi push hand practice, you should use your sensory function to improve your practice by analyzing your balance, visual observation, feedback on the opponent's movements and attacks, and so on, through your sense of touch. Having said that, what are you actually supposed to sense in Tai Chi practice? In other words, what is the actual practice of listening to the force in Tai Chi push hand? Well, different people may provide different answers. In my experience, you should focus on three aspects of in Ting Jin. First, space. Second, time. And the third, movement. The first factor is space. Sensing the space involves awareness of your own physical state or your own balance. This is why one of the key factors to win a push hand competition is to first establish and maintain your own balance. The second factor is time. Timing, or in other words, the speed of movements, including your own as well your opponent's. Managing timing is another key factor to maintaining your balance in push and practice. The third factor is movement. I cannot emphasize enough the fact that any martial skill needs to be carried by movements. Sensing your own and your opponent's movement, including its angle, strength, potential effect, and so on, is necessary in any Tai Chi practice. Furthermore, although I break down the sensation practice in Tai Chi Pushand into 3 key factors, in practice, these 3 factors have to work in unison sooner or later in order to be fully effective. Even though you can isolate each factor and focus on it one at a time in order to master them, they have to be integrated together in order to be fully effective in working with your Tai Chi Pushand partner or against an opponent. Traditionally, there are many practical methods in Tai Chi Pushand practice. It's not feasible to introduce all of them in a single video. However, some key principles including 舍己从人, 不丢不顶, have been introduced in one of my prior video titled Decoding Martial Proverb number 5. Basically, all of those principles emphasize that the key practice of a push hand is not to fight against your opponent's force and try to identify the right time to release your own power. If you have not watched that video yet, I recommend you watch it first and then get back to this video. Link is in the description. So, in order to achieve the result of 舍己从人 and 不丢不顶, you need to start with 听劲 or listening first. Or else, you won't be able to reach a high level in Tai Chi push hand practice. Also, you have to know that push hand is not a passive or reactive practice. Advanced level practitioner can proactively create situations to benefit themselves. For example, you can send a force to your opponent in order to trigger your opponent's reaction in your favor, which you can easily counter to win the competition. All of the above action require 听劲 or listening to the force. To summarize, 听劲 is an essential practice in Tai Chi, also applicable to xingyi and bagua. Even though it is a basic skill, it requires a lot of practice. I hope I have answered your question. Now, let's move on to the next question. Antonious Sameh asks, is crane versus snake is a real story? Is Tai Chi about crane versus snake? Thank you, Antonious, for this question. Well, after reading this question in the comment section of the previous video, I first responded with a short comment. It is just a metaphorical expression based on some story. Chinese people are very creative sometimes. I now realize it is worthwhile to further elaborate my answer. I have often mentioned in prior videos that most Chinese martial arts begin with weapons training followed by bare hand training in the military and later found their way into civilian life. However, in order to make martial arts more attractive, quite a few martial artists from about a century ago attributed the creation, development, and evolution of a martial practice to legendary, historical, mythical, or semi-mythical figures such as Zhang Sanfeng, Yue Fei, and others. Even worse, they were not satisfied to claim that some legendary figures created their martial practice. They even romanticize the source of martial practice to some animal fighting scene, including snake fight with crane, eagle fight bear, or dragon fight tiger. Actually, they are just metaphorical expression and are an unfortunate side effect of cultural utopianism. Think about this. Today, we have countless videos of animals fighting over animals. So, why don't we have any new martial art creations resulting from such videos? It's up to each one of us to think and decide on this for ourselves. By the way, I also have a video on the demystification of Wudang titled Decoding Martial Proverb number 10, Shaolin in the north, Wudang in the south. I recommend you watch it if you haven't already. The Tai Chi debate video and the Wudang demystification video should help you understand cultural utopianism, which is still rampant in Chinese society. Links to both videos are in the description. To summarize, we have to be able to distinguish a legendary story from reality. Martial arts often involve cultural elements, but at the end of the day, any martial art has to be about technique and effectiveness. Antonious, I hope I have answered your question. Let's move on to the next question. Anonymous member asks via email, is fast movement necessary in developing martial art practice? Well, the answer is very simple. Yes, fast movement practice is not only necessary, but it is essential and critical. We all know that the effectiveness of a martial art practice depends on many factors, including force, power, timing, angle, experience, and of course, speed. Furthermore, power is the product of speed and force. A physical movement without speed will have no power at all. Also, any martial skill requires a specific practice in order to achieve that skill, or else it will only remain in your mind without any realistic effect. So, if you want to move fast, you have to practice fast movements, or else your movement will not be fast when it actually counts. I have a video titled Internal Style Concepts, number 18, 快慢, in which I explain the concept of slow and fast practice in martial arts. I recommend you watch that video. Link is in the description. I hope I have answered the question. Let's move on to the next question. Brother Redmond asked a question about Wing Chun versus internal style hip movement. He said, in Wing Chun, they teach to move the hips forward and give clear reasons for doing forward. In internal styles, I believe this is called 顶胯 and consider it wrong for internal systems. Instead, internal systems have a band in their hips and at the ball and socket joint and called it 松胯. My question, why do internal styles 松胯? At first, I posted a simple answer in the comment section. I wrote, hello, the application of the hip depends on the foot stance posture. Also, there is 顶胯 practice in the internal style as well, but not that common. Overall, 松胯 is the basic requirement and 顶胯 is an action. They are two different postures for different purposes. I hope I answered your question. But Brother responded, hello, thank you for your responding. Actually now I'm more unclear. I don't even know what specifically to ask. Can you elaborate more on these things in a Q&A? Well, brother, sorry for my short answer making you more confused. I'd like to answer this question in more detail here. But before I begin, I'd like to remind you that I do not have any background in Wing Chun training at all. Some of my students practice and teach this style. One of my disciples, Zhan in Hong Kong, teaches xingyi and bagua, both of which he learned from me, and he teaches Wing Chun. So I had a few opportunities to see their practice. That's the extent of my Wing Chun knowledge. So I'm not in a position to talk about Ding Kwa in Wing Chun. But of course, I can explain Ding Kwa in the context of the internal styles. In any style, basically, there are two categories of a body state. They are dynamic and static. Even though a dynamic movement is a series of static postures, they still reflect the characteristic of a style or the fundamental principles of a style. In the internal styles, the basic posture of the hip is to sink downward, also called Chen Kwa. Since in the internal styles, normally a bow stance is the basic stance, which requires the hip to sink downward. But in Fa-Jin practice, hips can extend outward, called Ting Kwa or Ding Kwa in Mandarin, even though the Ding Kwa or Ting Kwa movement is very fast. The term used to describe the hip position in a static posture is called Chen Kwa or sink the hips, which I have explained here. Now, let's talk about Song Kwa, which Braden asked in this question. Song Kwa means relax the hips. It is an overall requirement of the internal styles. The hips have to be relaxed, or in other words, the hips need to maintain a neutral state before you release power using Fa-Jin execution. Chen Kwa or sinking the hip is to have a better relaxation of the hip area, and the Ding Kwa or extending the hips is an action used in Fa-Jin. So, these terms are used here in describing the action of the hip. Ding Kwa or extending the hip, Song Kwa or relaxing the hip, and Chen Kwa or sinking the hip. Each of them has its own function depending on your objective behind the movement of the hips. Like I mentioned before, the position of the hip is related to the position of your feet and your stance. So, brother, I recommend you try to feel this by yourself and you will understand them better. I hope my answer is clear now. Let's look at the final question for today. Cris Coleman asked a question about Tai Chi Stepping. Yang Shifu, thank you for your gracious sharing of the internal martial arts. I have one question for your next Q&A video. I have been practicing Chen-style Tai Chi for about 10 years. I recently did a demonstration of the form on a gravel driveway. While doing the spiraling movement of the silk railing within the Chen form of the edge of my feet were digging into the gravel. When the form was completed, there were some visual marks on the gravel where my feet had made. A senior student told me that when I do the form, there should be no marks on the ground. And if I am giving the metaphor of doing the form as if you are stepping on rice paper. It seemed to me if you root into the ground and become very stable, it will make you more powerful and increase your skill. can you please clarify that for me? Rooting and sinking into the feet versus being buoyant and practicing like you are on the rice paper. Thank you again, Master Yang. Earlier, I gave this very brief response. Hello, thank you for sharing your experience with us. It is nothing wrong to have a mark on ground, and more importantly, it is a good practice result. So please keep doing it. Thanks. But I realized that my answer was not clear and sufficient. So I'd like to take this opportunity to elaborate more. Before actually answering this question, let me provide some historical context. I'd like to share a story about Chen Fa-ke, the Tai Chi legend of the 20th century. Around 1928, Chen Fa-ke was invited to teach Tai Chi in Beijing, upon which he moved to Beijing from Chen village in Henan province. In the beginning, Tai Chi community did not perceive Chen-style Tai Chi as Tai Chi. They just called Pao Chui or Cannon Fist, which is the name of the second routine of a Chen-style Tai Chi. So, one day in a martial art event, Chen Fa-ke demonstrated his two routines in front of many top Tai Chi masters of Beijing. During his demonstration, he executed so much power that even one of the bricks were broken by his strong stepping practice. After watching his demonstration, many of them said that even though his movement was fast and powerful, his Tai Chi still followed the Tai Chi principle. Gradually, Chen-style Tai Chi became popular in Beijing and eventually became one of the major Tai Chi styles in China. That story tells us that Tai Chi stepping can be very powerful. Powerful enough to break a brick. In Tai Chi, there is a famous proverb to describe the Tai Chi stepping, which is 踏步如猫行, stepping like a cat. But that proverb is used to describe the slow motion Tai Chi practice. So, in terms of stepping, not only Tai Chi, but also all of other Chinese martial art styles emphasize the strong and stable stepping, especially during Fa-Jin practice. You have to use a strong stepping practice in Fa-Jin, since a strong stepping enhances the Fa-Jin effect. Of course, just like I mentioned that there also exists a slow motion stepping method, which is used during slow motion Tai Chi practice. This type of stepping needs to be stable, slow, and subtle. Regardless, your stepping will leave marks on the soil or gravel no matter what type of Tai Chi you practice. In China, there is the tradition that a martial art practitioner can gain respect from others if you leave marks on the ground after practice. Leaving a mark on the ground indicates that not only you practice correctly, but also diligently. Also, I have never heard that you have to practice Tai Chi as if you are walking on rice paper. Or maybe they have some secret practice. Who knows? Let us not forget, Tai Chi was originally and still is a martial art. However, like any other physical exercise, Tai Chi can provide great health benefit as well. Since Tai Chi practice includes the slow motion movement, which are more suitable for most people of all ages and physical conditions. Many people nowadays practice Tai Chi only for keeping good health. So, Tai Chi practice as simple physical exercise is great, of course. However, if you want to practice Tai Chi as the martial art for self-defense purposes, you have to practice Tai Chi in the intended martial way. Strong stepping for Fa-Jin alternation between slow and fast movement and application practice for each movement are necessary components for serious Tai Chi practice as a martial art. By the way, I have a prior video talking about Tai Chi Stepping titled Tai Chi Stepping Like a Cat. In that video, I introduced some general principles of a Tai Chi Stepping practice, but I did not mention the power releasing part of a Tai Chi Stepping in that video. If you have not watched it yet, please check it out. The link is in the description. So, thank you for your question, and it gives me this opportunity to share that information with the community. And I hope my answer is clear now. That brings us to the end of this month's Q&A. Thank you all for watching, and thanks to all the community members for your questions. See you next time and enjoy your practice.